All right, here's an example of some of the quadratics that I'm asking you to factor. These trinomials is actually what they're called because there are three parts. F squared is part, 9f, and 18. That's why it's called a trinomial. Anyway, we're going to factor these, and we're factoring them into two sets of parentheses. And we're going to start with this number. I have a positive 18. 18 is my number. The first thing we have to think about is what numbers multiply to give me 18. Well, I know 1 times 18. I know 2 times 9. I know 3 times 6, and I think that's it. Now, what we need to do next is, I have my list of factors. That's what I just did here. Now we need to look at those list of factors, and we're going to look at this middle term. And I'm going to look at my factors and find which pair of my factors will add up to a positive 9. Like now I'm going to say 1 plus 18 equals 19. So I know that's not it. 2 plus 9 equals 11. I know that's not it. But 6 plus 3 does equal 9. So I know that these are the factors that I'm going to want to use. And as long as this is just a variable squared, like it is f squared, I know I can put 1 here and 1 here. And right now, everything's positive. This is an easier one, so I know it's plus and plus. And I'm going to use my two factors we just figured out, plus 3 and plus 6. Now, it doesn't matter if you put the 6 where the 3 is and the 3 over where the 6 is. You get the same thing. To check your answer and see if we did this correct, you just use FOIL, which we have done. F times F gives me F squared. F times 6 gives me a positive 6F. Now I start with the 3. 3 times F gives me a positive 3F. And 3 times 6 gives me a positive 18. These are like terms. They can be put together. So my final answer does come back to F squared plus the 6 and the 3 give me 9. F plus 18, which is what I started with. So we're good to go. So this answer, F plus 3, F plus 6, is correct. Let's see if I can. Whoops. Whoops. Erase the whole thing. Let's try again. F plus 3, F plus 6. There we go. So we'll try another one. Again, the first thing that we start to do is we need to find factors of 16. Factors of 16. 1 times 16. 2 times 8. 3, nothing. 4 times 4. Okay. Now we look at those and talk about the sum, or talk about combining those numbers. If I combine them, like I'm adding them, 16 and 1 gives me a 17. 8 and 2 gives me a 10. Ooh, that's what I'm looking for. The 10 right here. I know I'm looking for the 10 because that is my middle term. The z squared is just a variable by itself. I've got no number to worry about, so I know it's just z and z. That's how I get the z squared. I figured out that these are the two factors I need because they add up to 10. Everything's positive, so I know it's plus 2 plus 8. So let's see if I put that in correct. Z plus 2, z plus 8. All right. So the more of these you do, the easier they'll become, and you'll have to do less of writing that list down like I've been doing, and especially on a problem like this one where my factor or my number is 2 that I'm looking at the factors for. Factors of 2, well, I can only get a 2 by saying 1 times 2. Well, and that works out just right because I know that 1 plus 2 is 3, which is that middle term right there I'm aiming for. I have the regular u squared, so I know it's just going to be u and u plus 1 plus 2. If I want to double check it, remember, just use FOIL. U times u is u squared. U times 2 is 2u. 1 times u is just u, or there is a 1 there. If you wanted to put it there, that's fine. And then 1 times 2 is 2. Combine my middle terms, 2u and 1u, leaves me with the 3u in the middle that I needed. So I do get back to the original problem. So I know that this should be correct. When you're doing these, it's not a bad idea to do what I just did and check your answer, because if you put it in there quickly and get it wrong, well, then you get set back and you got to do a few more problems. So take your time, check your answer, make sure you're doing it correct. U plus 1, U plus 2. Here's another easy one. Z squared is in the front, so I know I have Z and Z. 11 is a prime number. I can only get 11 by saying 11 times 1. And when I do 11 plus 1, that's what gives me 12, which I'm supposed to have, so we're good. 11 and 1. Another pretty simple one. There's only one way to get a 10. 10 times 1. And 10 plus 1 is 11. N plus 1. N plus 10. I'm trying to work through this to get to some, or maybe, I'm not sure if they have any with positives and negatives, but we'll see. Oh, I don't know why that happened. 9. Well, 9 can either be 9 times 1 or 3 times 3. And how do I know which pair it is? Well, I look at the middle term. It's 10. Well, 9 plus 1 is 10, so it's got to be this group. H plus... Now we've got something a little bit different here. The beginning is still the same because I have a regular positive f squared. So I know I have f and f. Now I've got to work with a negative 5. And there's only one way to get a 5. But to get a negative 5, I can either say negative 1 times 5, or I can say a positive 1 and a negative 5. Both of those give me a negative 5 when I multiply. How do I know which one to pick? Well, I pretend that I'm going to add these numbers together now. Negative 1 plus 5 gives me a positive 4. Whoops. But a positive 1 plus a negative 5 leaves me the negative 4, which is what the middle term says it should be. So I know I should be using a positive 1, and I should be using a negative 5. Positive 1, negative 5. Let's try and put that in. There we go. Another one that's a little different than any of the others. My factor is a positive 13. Well, there's only one way to get a 13, and I know that that's 1 times 13. But this problem is saying, well, your middle term has to be a negative 14. So if I think about it, really, there's two ways to get a positive 13. I can say a positive 1 times a positive 1. Positive times positive is positive 13. Or I could say negative 1 times negative 13. And when I combine those, that's... I kind of skipped ahead here. Just talking about multiplying, negative 1 times negative 13 gives me that positive 13 as well. This second part now, where I combine these, is where the negative 14 comes from. And that's why I know that this second group here is the correct group to write. Okay, so there's a j squared in the front, so I know that's just going to stay j and j. And here it's saying minus 1, minus 13. Oops. J minus 1, j minus 13. Now here we have to start with a negative 7. So remember, to get a negative 7, it's either going to be negative 1 times 7 or a positive 1 times a negative 7. How do I know which one to pick? Again, look at the middle number. The middle number is negative 6. If I add the top two together, that gives me a positive 6. If I add the bottom two together, that gives me the negative 6 that I'm looking for. So I know that it's the bottom group that I'm looking at. I know it's H and H. I just said it was the bottom group, so I know it's a positive 1, a negative 7. That gives me the negative 6. Let's try it out. H plus 1, H minus 7. we did one similar to this. Positive 12. Well, I know it's 1 times 12, or it's 2 times 6, or it's 3 times 4. But right now, none of those add up to the negative 8 that I'm supposed to have. So if you remember, we can also say, oh, well, negative 1 and negative 12, when I multiply, give me a positive. Negative 2 times negative 6, or negative 3 and negative 4. Which group do I need to pick? I need to pick the group that adds up to that negative 8, which is these two right here. Negative 6 and negative 2 gives me negative 8. So x minus 2, x minus 6. Now remember, like before, I said it doesn't matter what order I put those in. I could have the x minus 6 first, and x, not that. X minus 6 could go first, and then my x minus 2. And those two answers are the same. You just have to make sure you get the correct sign with the correct number. Negative 19. To get a negative 19, there's only a couple ways. 1 times negative 19, or negative 1 times positive 19. I want a positive 18 as my answer, so that means I have to pick the second group there. And the second group was minus 1 and a plus 19. Minus 1 and plus 19. See if I can remember that. Minus 1 plus 19. Ooh, positive 24, but I know I need to get a negative middle number, so I know I have to do a negative times a negative. Well, I'm just going to go through these quickly now. 24, 6 times 4 is 24, and 6 and 4 make 10. So I know it's got to be. And if I check this quickly, because we did this fast, x times x is x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Negative 6 times x is negative 6x. Negative 6 times negative 4 is positive 24. And my two middle terms, negative 6 and negative 4, give me the negative 10 I'm looking for. So, how do we get a 21? 7 times 3. And on a 7 and a 3, I can get a 4, because I can do 7 minus 3. And I want my 7 to be positive because I want this, the 4s is positive. So I know I want my bigger number to be positive. Come on, get back to here. Okay. So I know it's going to be s plus 7, s minus 3. That 7 and the negative 3 give me the positive 4 I was looking for. $21, again, 7 times 3. The 21 is positive, but the middle is negative. So just like we talked about, I know they're both going to be minus now. G, not 9. G minus 7. G minus 3. I guess I have to figure out a different way to write my 9s. Or my G's. G minus 7, g minus 3. There we go. Oh, it put my 2 as a set. Well, I said it right. T plus 5, t minus 2. Nope. Yep. Yeah, that 8, minus 8, and minus 1 give me the minus 9 in the middle. Ooh, 15 to get a 2. 3 times 5. 3 times 5. Whoops. 3 times 5 gives me 15. And if I subtract those, I get 2. And the 2 should be negative, so that means the 5 has to be. So it should be p minus 5 and a positive 3. This one's back to a simple one. Negative 13. There's only one way to get a negative 13. That's to do a minus 13 and a plus 1. This back to a pretty simple one. 17 times 1. Well, it made my... Get it out of there. Holy cow. Try it again. G plus 17. G plus 1. Got it. 20. The number I'm multiplying together, or the number I'm looking at is 20. 1 times 20. 2 times 10. 4 times 5. Everything's positive. So 4 and 5 give me the 9 I'm looking for in the middle. G plus 4. G plus 5. Last one, 8 and 2. J plus 8. I know it's plus 8 because the 6 in the middle is positive. J minus 2. All right, so hope those help out. Oh, it's trying to get tricky with me. Z minus 11. Z plus 3. All right, good enough. Hopefully that helps out, and you can get this IXL assignment done.